Hi everybody, this is Bonnie Barker with Bonnie Bay Crochet and welcome to week 1 of Bonnie's Mystery Crochet Along. If you haven't seen the introductory remarks in the video from several weeks ago, I'm going to have the link in the video description below, just kind of so you have a general idea of what we're going to be doing. But I will review a few of those things right now. Okay, this is going to be a square-based project. Each week I'm going to show you a new square. Let me go ahead and show you this week's square. I really hope you enjoy this one. Let me go ahead and pull that back a little bit. All right, so now you know 2 of the colors. You know that I'm going to be using this mustard yellow color, which I absolutely love. And the color that I'm going to be trimming my particular project with is going to be this dark green. All right, so I'm going to show you how to make these in the attached video. And this particular square features what we call the wheat stitch. This is the wheat stitch, or it's really the smaller wheat stitch, but this is the large wheat cable down the center, and then you have another wheat stitch here, so that it is symmetrical. This is approximately 13 inches by 13 inches, but you know, the gauge is not so important here. And let me just reiterate that if you want to make this out of the same yarn that I'm making, which is a worsted weight yarn, which I'll show you in just a second, you can. If you want to use a thinner yarn, for example, a DK weight yarn, or even smaller, you're absolutely fine to be able to do that. Just make sure that you size your hooks according to the yarn that you select. Now let me give you some hints on what you can do with this. Suppose you just want to experiment with some cables and maybe you don't want to make a whole throw. That's perfectly fine. The sizing of this, like I said, is 13 inches by 13 inches, and which is a great size to make a pillow. So you can easily buy a pillow form from the store, make 2 of these and crochet them together. And that would be a wonderful item that you can put in your home. Let me just say a few things about these before we dive into actually crocheting one. This is an intermediate project, but if you're a confident beginner and you know how to do the basic crochet stitches such as single crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and chains and slip stitches, then you should be good to go. And I would encourage you to go ahead and dive in and give it a try. And it's okay, mistakes are allowed. And that's probably one of the best ways that we all learn. So hopefully by making 4 of these, by the end of the 4th, you'll understand these stitches fairly well. So what we will do now, I'll show you how to make 1 of these, and what you're going to need to do if you're going to follow me along throughout the crochet along is you're going to need to have 4 of these made this week. And then next week, I will release video number 2, which will show you the next part of this mystery throw. And I think you're really going to like this. Let me give you one more view of the square. And let me go ahead and show you what I used for this. All right, before we begin, I wanted to show you up close the first square. This will be square number 1 in our mystery crochet along. And let me just explain the stitches to you a little bit, and then I am going to demonstrate them. We have 2 wattle stitches. We have an 8-stitch wheat cable, 1 wattle stitch in between these cables, and then here we have the large wheat cable. And I do have separate videos for this if you want to check out the video description below, or check out the playlist of Aran Celtic cabled stitches in my playlist. And then we have another wattle stitch, and then we have another wheat cable. This is the 8-post wheat cable, which is the same as the one I showed you here, and then 2 wattle stitches on the side. And you can tell I have framed this. I don't know if you can see this. This is a dark green color that I'm using for my trim for all of my squares, and then I'm going to be crocheting these together as we get closer to the end of our mystery crochet along. Well, let me go ahead and show you the hooks and the yarn. For this first square, I'm going to be using Paint Box Yarns Simply Aran. This is a number 4 or a worsted weight yarn, and this is 100% acrylic, 100 grams per ball, 3.5 ounces, or 201 yards. Now, if you have other size yarn, as I mentioned in the intro video to this crochet along, you can use
really any yarn that you desire, as long as I would encourage you to stick with either a DK weight or an Aran weight yarn, just so that the stitches look nice and you don't have to crochet too many of these squares in order to make a sizable blanket or a throw. Okay, I'm also, since I am using the Aran weight yarn, I am going to be using a crochet hook size I or 9 or 5.50 millimeter crochet hook. Now, if you're going to use a different weight of yarn, definitely size your hook according to the yarn that you use. There's nothing magical about a particular size crochet hook. You just need to make sure it's like a pair of shoes. It needs to fit the yarn. Okay, and I'm also going to recommend that you have some crochet stitch markers. I'm going to have 3 or 4 of these handy, and I just want to have a shout out to Sandra. Thank you so much for your sweet kindness in sending these to me. These are going to be very important as we work single crochets around the outer edge once we finish. And as always, I recommend that you have a pair of sharp scissors and a yarn needle handy to hide all the loose ends. To begin, we're going to start with a slip knot, and I am going to crochet 53 chains. Now to start row number 1, we're going to begin in the 4th chain from the hook, and we're going to work a wattle stitch, which is a single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. Also notice that I am working in just one side of the V of this chain. If the chain looks like this, I'm just working in one of the loops. I am not working in the back bump, and part of that reason is when we come to work our perimeter round, we are going to be working in the remaining part of the chain, so the chain will not be showing. Okay, so after we work that first wattle stitch, we're going to skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and then we're going to work another wattle stitch, single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet. We're going to skip 2 more, 1, 2, and in the next chain we're going to work a double crochet. This is setting up for the 8 stitch wheat stitch. So now we're going to also work a double crochet in the next 7 stitches as well, until we have a total of 8 double crochets in a row here. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I am going to take this row very slow just to let you know, because this is the most important one, setting up as we go across. So let's verify that we have 7 additional stitches, which plus this one makes 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That looks good. And we have a wattle stitch in between this cable and the center large cable. So in the next, very next stitch or chain, we're going to work a wattle stitch, which is that single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet, again worked all in that same space. We're going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and then now we're going to work 3 double crochets, 1 in each of the next 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3. This is setting up for the large wheat cable, and we're going to work a half double crochet in the next stitch. Okay, I'm going to stop and slow down just for a little bit. So we have 3 double crochets and then a half double crochet. We're going to repeat that 2 more times. So let's go ahead, and our second repetition is going to be, again, 3 double crochets, 1 in each of the next chains, and then a half double crochet. Let's do that again. 1 double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches, and then a half double crochet. Now we have to work 3 more double crochets, 1 in each of the next 3 stitches, And then we're going to take a pause, and I'm going to review what we just did. So this is that wattle stitch in between the 8 stitches over here and then the large cable that we're setting the foundation for. So let's review. 1, 2, 3 double crochets and then a half double crochet. 1, 2, 3 double crochets and then a half double crochet. 1, 2, 3 double crochets, half double crochet, and then 1, 2, 3 double crochets. Now we're ready for another wattle stitch, and we work that by working a single crochet, chain 1, double crochet in that next stitch, skip 2 stitches, and now we're ready to work 8 double crochets, 1 in each of the next 8 stitches, so that we can work the smaller wheat cable that will match the other side. This is going to be hopefully a totally symmetrical square, meaning the same on each side. So we have 6, we need 2 more, 7 and 8. So let's double check. We have our wattle stitch here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, looking good. Now we need to work 2 more wattle stitches to end the row. Single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, skip 2, 1, 2, and then we work a single crochet, chain 1, and a double crochet, skip 2, and in that last chain we're going to work a single crochet, and that ends the row. If you have extra chains here, then you must have miscounted or perhaps didn't skip enough stitches, so you might want to check on that. If you just crocheted too many, there is a video that I have, I'll put the link in the video description, where it'll show you how to take out those extra chains so you don't have to redo everything. But do make sure that you didn't skip stitches or neglected to skip stitches. All right, so let's review. This is what you should have across for row 1. 2 wattle stitches, 8 double crochets, a wattle stitch, and then you have the 3 doubles, half double, 3 doubles, half double, 3 doubles, half double, 3 doubles, that would be the large center cable, a wattle stitch, 8 double crochets, and then 2 wattle stitches. So if you have that just like that, then we're good to go. Now we're going to turn, and we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Many of you who follow some of my other patterns, I generally chain 2, but for this particular pattern, I'm adding an additional chain, so do be mindful of that. It'll just help the squares to block better once we complete them and are putting them together. Okay, so now we're going to be working in the wattle stitches only in that chain 1 space, which is right here. So we're going to skip this stitch and the double crochet, and just working in the chain 1 space, we're going to work another wattle stitch, which is the single crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Find the next chain 1 space and do the same thing again. Single crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Now we're ready to cross our first cables. Yes, very early. We're going to skip the next 2 double crochets, and also notice we're not working in the single crochet. Whenever you're working in the wattle stitches, we're only going to work in that chain 1 space. So getting to the cable, skip 2 stitches, and you can see I've wrapped my hook twice for a front post treble crochet. And if you need additional tutorials for these, again, check my stitch listings on my channel. But I'm going to go slow the first couple. What we're doing, let me back that out. When we're working a front post, the only difference is instead of working through the top loops, we're going to give the stitch a belt. So as in wrapping something around it, the needle, as you see, or the hook, goes around the body, and we pull up a loop, and we just complete the stitch the way we normally would. I'll do this again. Wrapping the hook twice for a front post treble, and the hook goes around the stitch just like this. These stitches are easier, I believe, than working in the top loops, but you do have to know where to place them. Now this is the tricky part probably of the entire project here. or were of this square. Now working behind these 2 stitches that we just worked, we're going to come into the hole here, okay, coming in from the back, and then we're going to work a front post treble around this stitch and then around this stitch. So I'm going to grab this with my thumbkin and my tall man finger, and I am locating it using those sensors in my hands, and there it is. So go ahead and you work the front post treble around that stitch, and then come into this hole again, and you see the second stitch here, and if you can locate it by putting your thumb up into the hole as well and work around that stitch. I do have an additional video on the wheat cables, and again, please check the video description below and I'll be sure to add those links down there for you. Now we skip the next 2 stitches, and we're going to work front post trebles in the next 2 stitches as well. Now we're going to work in front of these 2 stitches, which I believe is easier, and we're going to work front post in this stitch and this stitch, and we're working front post treble crochets. Whenever you cross the cables, we're going to use treble crochets, but generally speaking we use double crochets for everything else. So let's pause, and this is the beginning of the wheat cable, of the small wheat cable. Every other row is going to be worked just like this when you get to this cable section. Okay, now we get to the wattle stitch, and again, just working in that chain 1 space, work another wattle stitch. Now for the next several stitches, we're just going to continue to build the foundation before we cross any cables, and this will simplify what we're doing here a bit. Okay, so we're going to work front post double crochets over the next 3 stitches. That's the second and the third, so that's 1, 2, 3. Now when you come to the half double crochet, we are going to work in those top loops and just work a half double in that half double crochet. We're going to do that a few more times. 3 front post double crochets, and then working in the top loops. Let's make sure we don't crochet a hair into that. Yeah, that can be a problem. And a half double in the top loops, and then again 3 front post double crochets, and again half double in that half double. Let's stop and see where we have so far. So far we have the 3 front post, half double, 3 front, half double, 3 front, half double. You can see the half doubles recessing a bit and makes it easier to see the cables. So, and the last 3 stitches are just 3 front post double crochets, and there is no half double after this last one. Let's pause and just take another look. And you can already see how the wattle stitches also kind of recess to the background, which is by design so that the cables give that added texture. All right, so now we come to another wattle stitch, and we just work single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, which constitutes another wattle stitch in that space. Now we've come to the next 8 double crochets, which is where we are going to cross the cables again, skip the next 2 stitches, and we're going to work front post trebles in the next 2 stitches, working behind those last 2 stitches. We're going to work a front post treble in this stitch and this stitch. Remember, this is where you come into that large hole, and we work this stitch and this is the next one right here. I've located it with my fingers. And again, definitely check out some of those additional supplemental videos if you've never seen these before. Now we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, and we're going to front post treble in the next 2 stitches, working in front of those last 2 stitches that we just worked. We're going to front post treble in those 2 stitches that we just skipped. Okay, so that's the beginning of the wheat cable. Now let me go ahead and do those last two, which are the wattle stitches, working in those chain 1 spaces only, working the wattle stitches. Notice that we skip the other stitches in those and work again only in the chain 1 spaces. You get to the end and we're going to find that chain 3 space, which is right here, and we're going to work a single crochet in that space. So let's go ahead and take a look after row 2. So you see how these stitches make kind of a large V that go down and then up, and you want to double check visually just to make sure when you finish these rows, especially when you cross the cables, that you are crossing them correctly. It's so easy to just go the wrong direction and just keep on crocheting. I have done it more times than I care to count, and it's because of just not taking a pause and doing a quick visual check. Now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and this is beginning row number 3, working again only in the chain 1 space of those wattle stitches. We work the wattle stitch in that space. Go to the next one, which is right here. Now with the back side facing, we're going to just work back post, which is working the post stitch but coming in the back door, going around the front and then out the back door again. We're just working back post double crochets. Remember, we only use the treble crochets on these cables when we're crossing the cables. When we're not crossing them, we're just using either front post or back post double crochets. Do make sure that you have 8 stitches. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I should have 4 more on the other side to make for 8 back post double crochets. Okay, this is a worthy pause. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Never hurts to double check. Now we come to a wattle stitch and we just work a wattle stitch in that chain 1 space. Now we have come to the back side of the large cable and we're just going to dive right in. We're going to work 3 back post double crochets. And then after we do the back post double crochets, we're going to work in the top loops of the half double. Again, this is those stitches that are kind of there to help give us definition on the cables. And we're going to do that a few times. 3 back post double crochets, followed by a half double crochet. 3 back post double crochets, and then a half double crochet worked right in the top. And then we have 3 more back post double crochets. 1, 2, and 3. After that, you see the wattle stitch sitting right there. Go ahead and work another wattle stitch in that chain 1 space. And that brings us to the back side of the 8 stitch wheat cable. And we work those 8 back post double crochets right straight across there. No crossing or any of that. And by the way, we only cross the cables with the front side facing, and that's not every row for every cable. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a bit. That's number 7. And number 8, again, a quick visual and a little count. 8, that's right. And we come down to the last 2 wattle stitches and we work wattle stitches in those chain 1 spaces. Yes, I do repeat myself a lot, And I'm doing that because I know that there are a lot of you out there who've never seen these stitches before, so please forgive all of that redundancy if you have been following my channel for a while. I appreciate your patience. All right, now we come to the chain 3 and just do a single crochet right in that turning chain. This is what you should have, the back side facing. But look at this, when we look at the front side, it's starting to look like something, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so now let me talk a little bit about what we're about to do so that it's not too confusing. Whenever the front side is facing, we are going to cross this cable and this cable every other row. I mean, every single time that the front side is facing, which is every other row, we are going to cross this cable. These, not so much. This is going to be every 4 rows that we cross this, and we're going to show you, I'm going to show you how to cross that this coming row. So this is 1, 2, 3, this is row number 4, and each row is going to start the same, chain 3, and we start by working those 2 waddle stitches in those chain 1 spaces only. And like I said, we're going to cross this cable every time we come to it. And when you cross it, it's going to look exactly like it looked down here. So let's go ahead and do this. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, working behind those 2 stitches. We're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we skipped. This one, which is first here, and then the next one, which is right there. I'm going to go ahead and locate it with my fingers there. Okay, so it looks like this. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, working in front of the last 2 stitches here. We're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we skipped. Okay, so you see there, it's always going to go out from the center. It's going to come out like this all the way up the square, and then we work our waddle stitch in that next space, chain 1 space, and now we're ready for the big crossing. It's similar to this, but I'm just going to go ahead and show you. First, we're going to start by skipping the next 3 post stitches, and in that half double crochet, work a half double crochet. It's going to look weird for a couple minutes, but hang with me here. We're going to work front post treble crochets in the next 3 stitches. Okay, just like that. Now working behind the last 4 stitches, that would be the 3 post stitches and that half double crochet, we're going to come into this big hole here, and we're going to work front post treble around this stitch, then this stitch, and this stitch. Again, use those nerve endings in your fingers to locate these one by one, and this will make this go so much easier. Okay, that was the first. I come back into the hole. I locate this stitch right here. That's number 2. And don't forget that 3rd one right there. Okay, so we've done all 3 of those. They're connected down here. Half double in that next half double crochet. And we're essentially done with half of this cable. Now we're going to skip the next 3 stitches, work a half double in that next stitch, and again, this is going to look kind of weird and unusual, but that's okay. Front post treble in the next 3 stitches, now working in front of the last 4 stitches right here, we're going to front post treble in these 3 stitches. That's 1, 2, and 3. So before I show you this cable, I'm going to work this waddle stitch in the next space just to kind of anchor this, and let's take a look at what we've done. Okay, so this is what the big cable should look like right now in the middle. Again, it's very similar to where these stitches are going outward with this the small 8-post wheat cable. Well, here you have these going this way and these going this way, and this is going to happen every 4 rows. Okay, and just a reminder, these are going to cross every 2 rows, or every time the front side of the work is facing you. Okay, so now we have worked the waddle stitch. Now it's time to cross the small wheat cable again. We skip these 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, working behind these 2 stitches. We're going to front post treble in those 2 stitches. Whoops, let's not lose there we go. Yeah, it gets away from me too, everybody. And front post treble in the next stitch as well. Again, that is the tricky part, but once you get used to that, and believe me, if you make 4 of these squares like you're going to need for this project, I think you're going to get that skill down and it won't be frightening anymore. Okay, skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble, and the next 2 stitches, working behind the last 2 stitches here, front post treble in the 2 stitches that you just skipped. Picked up something off the floor there. Okay, and we get to the end of the row. We're going to work waddle stitches in that chain 1 space. It won't take you long to get muscle memory for these. And when you come to that chain 3, work a single crochet in that space. Let's pause and take a look. Do a quick visual check to make sure that these are crossing in the correct manner, and we're ready to move on to the next row. So this is going to be row 5 already. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and those waddle stitches in the first 2 stitches, in the first 2 chain 1 spaces, just like we've been doing. And this is a repeat of what we did 2 rows earlier. We're going to work back post double crochets across the next 8 stitches. It's 3 and 4 and 5, 6, 7, and 8. You get to the waddle stitch, you know what to do. Make a waddle stitch in that chain 1 space. Now we come to the back side of the cable, and it's going to be a little different after when you come to the row following the crossing of the cables. We're going to work 3 back post double crochets over the next 3 stitches, and these are the stitches that are just coming in order, and they're going to be the ones that were crossed on top. Now in between the last stitch and the next stitch, which is over here, there's just a little space where the cables were crossed. We're going to work a half double crochet right there, and then we're going to work 3 more back post double crochets. Okay, now some of you who are counting conscious of what I've just did here, I did add a stitch right there. Okay, but the stitch count is not going to change, because we're going to skip this half double crochet and only crochet a half double in this one right here. A lot of times people don't even see this half double crochet right over here, but this is the one that was made right before the front post trebles with the front side facing. Okay, that's probably too much information for a lot of you, but just to let you know, the stitch count, once you establish it on row 1, essentially does not change. Now we're going to work 3 more back post double crochets. This is on the other side of that large wheat cable. After we work those 3, we're going to do the same thing again. You can see this is where the center of the cable is, where they were crossed, and just right in that open space there, work a half double crochet in between that last stitch and the next stitch. And then there are 3 more back post double crochets. Don't forget these when you work the cable. It's very easy to just go into the wattle stitch, and you'll realize what you've done once you churn the work around. But so we need to make sure that we go through all of those loops, or all of those post stitches, and we get to that wattle stitch. Work that wattle stitch in that chain 1 space, and now we're to the back side of the small wheat cable, and we just work 9 back post double crochets across those 8 stitches. And we get the rest of these back post double crochets worked over the back side of that wheat cable. Okay, so make sure that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those, very important. And then we get to the 2 wattle stitches, and we just work a wattle stitch in each of these chain 1 spaces. And when we get to the chain 3, just work a single crochet. Let's go ahead and turn and see what we should have now. This is after 5 rows. Now for row 6, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work the wattle stitches again. Like I said, every row will begin this way. And once again, we have the front side facing. We are going to cross these cables. So I'll give this demonstration one more time. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in those next 2 stitches. And coming in, now we're going to work 2 front post treble behind these 2 stitches. We come into the hole and work that first stitch. There we go. Wanting to get away from me again. And we come in and get the next stitch, which is right here, and work that front post treble. Now for the other side of this small wheat cable, we're going to skip these next 2 stitches, and we're going to front post treble in the next 2 stitches. Working in front of these 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. Come to the wattle stitch, you know what to do. Make that wattle stitch right in that chain 1 space. Now for the large cable, the next couple of rows are going to be quite easy. We're just going to work front post double crochets over those 3 post stitches. And then when you come to that half double, don't forget it. Don't let the stitches in front hide it. Make sure that you work in through the top loops of that half double right in between, and then 3 more front post double crochets. Okay, so this is half of that cable, and then half double in that half double, working through the top loops. And then we're going to do that again, 3 more front post double crochets, and then after that we're going to work a half double in the half double, and then 3 more front post double crochets. Okay, so that's what this large cable should look like during row number 6. I believe that's row 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's correct. And then again, waddle stitch in that chain 1 space of last row's waddle stitch, and then we're going to cross the cables one more time of the small wheat cable and skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches. Working behind these 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. Okay, now skip the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, front post treble in those next 2 stitches. Working in front of those 2 stitches, front post treble in the 2 stitches that were skipped. And the row ends just like the other rows, working waddle stitches in those next 2 stitches. And a single crochet in the turning chain. All right, now we're ready to go on to row number 7, and I'm actually going to talk you through this one so that you understand what we need to do. We're going to work a waddle stitch here, a waddle stitch here. We're going to work 8 back post double crochets across this small wheat cable. You've seen that for the last, well, you've seen that for a couple of rows. A waddle stitch in the waddle stitch, and as we work across the large stitch, what we're going to do is 3 back post double crochets, half double, 3 back post double crochets, half double, 3 back post double crochets, half double, and 3 more back post double crochets. We're just growing this cable, we're not crossing anything. A waddle stitch here, and then 8 back post double crochets, and then waddle stitch, and a single crochet in that chain 3 space. So go ahead and work that row, and then I'll show you what I have. This is what you should have after a total of 7 rows worked. Now we crossed these large cables on the 4th row. So now we are on row number 8. So it's time to cross the large cable again. We're going to do it in the exact same way that we did down here on row number 4. And we're going to cross these cables again as we have been all along, and this one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll work this with you. We're going to chain 3, work the 2 waddle stitches. This will be the last row that I demonstrate, because after this I'm going to give you an assignment, and I'll give that to you in just a second. All right, so we work the 2 waddle stitches. Now we're going to cross this wheat cable, skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches. Working behind these 2 stitches, we're going to front post treble in this stitch and then this one. Make sure we get all the strands. There we go. And we come in for that 2nd stitch. Skip the next 2 stitches, front post treble in the next 2 stitches, working in front of those last 2 stitches. We're going to front post treble in the 2 stitches that we just skipped. Okay, just like that, and work that waddle stitch. And now we're going to cross this large cable again. We're going to skip the next 3 post stitches, half double, and that half double. Front post treble crochet in the next 3 stitches. Remember, we always use trebles when we're crossing the cables, but that's pretty much the only time we're going to use them in this pattern. So now working behind these last 4 stitches, we're going to come into this big opening here, and we're going to work this one, and this one using the front post treble. So I've located this stitch. Well, let's try that one again. It totally got away from me. And I'm using my fingers to locate that stitch. And like I said, pop your thumb up into that hole. That will definitely be helpful as well. Come back, get that second stitch. And one more, which is right here. Make sure you go under the entire stitch and not just a part of it, or just a couple strands. And after we do that, we will do a half double in that center of the entire cable, and then skip 3 more. Half double and that half double. Again, it looks rather odd, and it's going to feel even stranger. Front post treble in the next 3 stitches. And now for the easy part, working in front of those last 4 stitches, we're going to front post treble in each of the 3 stitches that we just skipped. Okay, just like that. And again, we work the wattle stitch, and I'm going to talk you through the rest of this. Then we're going to cross this cable again over here, just like I worked this one, and then we're going to end with the 2 wattle stitches and a single crochet in that chain 3 space. So this is what you should have after completing 8 rows. Now after completing 8 rows, what we're going to do is we're going to repeat rows 5, 6, 7, and 8 over and over again until this becomes a square. So that's going to constitute repeating rows 5 through 8 4 times more. So you'll be adding 16 additional rows. And then after you do that, you're going to need to repeat row 5 once more, and then I will show you how to work the perimeter round. For those of you who need stitch support, please look across the bottom of the screen, and you can go back to the time mark listed there, and you can review how to repeat rows 5 through 8, and you can just crochet along with me should you need that additional support. And again, those of you who need additional, just to look at the plain stitches themselves, please check the video description below for those additional links. After completing 26 rows, this is what I have. Now, if you count the number of cables crossed in the center large cable, you should have 6. So you have a crossing here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then again, we repeated, after that last cross, we repeated 2 more rows. Now we're ready to work our perimeter round. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be working single crochets down the side, but we're not going to be working an even number, 1 per row or anything like that. We're going to have to disperse stitches evenly. So in order to do that, I'm going to fold this in half. And you don't have to do what I'm doing, but I just find using stitch markers very helpful. We're going to use stitch markers to mark the center, which is approximately there. And so now I'm going to also fold the corner to where I put the stitch marker. Okay, to find about the halfway point between there. And I'm going to put another stitch marker right there. And I'm going to do that again on this side. Again, you don't have to do this, but I think this will be very helpful. I'm going to fold it there. And then so I find the halfway point of each of these. If I can hold on to the stitch marker. And mark it right about, okay, Okay, right about there. Okay, so after doing that, you see what I've done is I've divided this into fourths. And the reason I've done that is we are going to work 40 single crochets evenly across each side of the square. And I'm going to do this with you just to show you how I like to do this. Again, this is just an option. You can just, randomly guess at this, but I prefer not to do things over and over again, which is what happens when I try to guess at doing this evenly. So now we're ready to work our perimeter round. So I'm going to turn 90 degrees. I'm going to chain 1. That's just to enable me to work across this end. We're going to be adding a chain 2 when we come across this end, and I'll show that to you a little bit later. Okay, so we're going to work 10 single crochets from here to approximately to the stitch mark. So 1, I'm going to put 2 in that space there, 2, 3, let's make 2 there, that's 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So in this case, it did end up being 2 single crochets per row, but that's not always going to be the case going all the way across. So now we're going to do 10 from here to there. So let's go ahead and work that. I'm going to just put 1 in this next row end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and put 2 there, and then 9, 10. So that's now a total of 20, and you can see that it's reasonably even. It's not buckling and it's not pulling on the fabric too tight. And that's what we want, is just even stitches across. So from this stitch marker to the next stitch marker, we're going to add 10 more. So you can just leave the stitch markers in until we move them to the next side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just 1 there, 8, 9, and let's do 1 here, 10 on the other side of that stitch marker. And now we just have 10 more to the end. So let's put 2 in these chain ends here, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 1 in that last row, 10. Okay, so now we have 40 single crochets evenly along the side. I'm going to pull this up, take my stitch markers off, and I'm going to move them, and I'm going to divide them evenly across this end, just the way I showed you along the side. So now working across the foundation chain, we're going to do the same. We're going to work 40 stitches evenly across, and the way I've placed my stitch markers, I will just work 10 stitches evenly in this section, 10, 10, and 10. And just be careful that you're not working in every stitch, because if you work in every stitch across this end or across the top end, then you're going to have too many stitches and the stitches will begin to buckle. Okay, so now to turn, we're going to chain 2. 1, 2 to form that chain 2 corner. And I'm going to work my first single crochet in the same place as the last, just to help form that corner. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, let's skip 1, 7, 8, and let's 9, and let's skip another one, 10. Okay, so we have 10 stitches there, and going to the next section, and so forth and so on. So this is what I'm going to do across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to skip this half double. 7, 8, 9, and we'll put our 10th one where that stitch marker is. 10. And let's do the next 10. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to skip the half double. 4, 5. Let's skip the next one. 6, 7, 8. And if I don't like the look of that, I can back it out. Okay, 5, 6. Let's put one there. 7, 8, 9, and 10. I feel better about that. Okay, so now let's just verify that we have those 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you see it's much easier to count when you count the stitches in between the stitch markers. Okay, so now we're ready for 10 more, and that should take us to the corner. 1, 2, 3, and let's skip 1, 4, 5, okay, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 1 in that last space, 10. And so you see, you have 40 stitches across this edge, and they've been worked evenly. So I'm going to continue that across the next 2 edges. Don't forget that when you turn the corners, chain 2, and then crochet in that same space if you can, or very nearby it, so that you form a corner. And then after this round, I will show you how to change yarns and to make the final round with the contrasting color. After working those 40 stitches across the last section, which is the top of the square, we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to join with a slip stitch to that very first single crochet of the round, and then go ahead and fasten off the yarn just like that. Pull it on through, and let's take a look. We're not done yet. We have one more round to work, but I just wanted to show you just how even the stitches should look with those 40 stitches across each side. Now this is the contrasting color, or I should say the trim color, that I'm going to use around each of my squares, and also going to make the edging from this color. So I'm going to go ahead and take the time to go around each one of these. Now you can also choose to do this once you finish your squares, but I kind of like to finish everything as I go, and you can start this anywhere. I prefer to start it a little far away from this final thread, because I'm going to try to crochet over that as I go around, but I am going to start in the corner right here at the top, and I do have the front side facing. All right, so let's go ahead and make our slip knot, and I'm going to join right here, and I'm going to work a single crochet, chain 2, and then a single crochet in that same space, just like that. Now as I crochet across, I'm just going to crochet 1 single crochet in each stitch across. And don't forget, the very first stitch, it's easy to just jump into the second stitch, but you're going to need this stitch. This is very important. So work that first stitch as you go there. And I am working over this little tail. If you prefer to hide your strands in a different fashion, that's totally fine. But I find that crocheting over them It does save some time, and I honestly don't believe that anybody will ever know. Okay, once you get to the corner, we're going to work a single crochet, chain 2, and a single crochet in that corner. So your stitch count all the way across the row should be a total of 42, because we've added 1 in each of the corners. Should be 42 single crochets. Okay, so now we're going to turn, and I'm not going to show you this all the way around, but I did want to show you this one point. Okay, we did join right here, so don't forget to use that as a stitch, because that is also a single crochet. So make sure that you crochet in that very first single crochet along the side, and in each single crochet across. And again, I am crocheting over yet another yarn tail here. And again, this is going to save a lot of time if you crochet over those and hide them as you go. It's just going to lessen how many tails that you have to hide when we get to the end. Because before we start crocheting these together, I highly recommend that you hide all loose ends and yarn joins before we do that. It just makes life a lot more enjoyable when we get to finishing the project off. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go all the way around, and I will show you the final join. After working all the way around, we're going to join to that first single crochet of the round with a slip stitch, and then give it a chain and a tug. And I'm going to go ahead and clip a generous strand to be hidden. And let me just give a quick tutorial on how to hide this loose strand. I know many of you may know how to do this already, but if you're the first, this is the first of this kind of crocheting that you've seen on my channel, you may not have seen this before. So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick demo. I'm going to bring this right down into the stitches, just like this. And also notice I'm working this on the back side. And I'm just going to run this under several of the stitches, and I'm going to try to stay under the green stitches, because I know that this will show if it's run underneath the yellow stitches, obviously, because it's a darker color. All right, so let's do that. That should be plenty to hide this, and I give it a pull, and I always give a little tug back. Okay, and then taking the scissors very carefully, I want to cut it close, but I don't want to cut the other stitches involved. I just want to cut that strand, and there it is. And now let's get that out of the way. Okay, so we have our first square completed. Let's go ahead and take a look at that, and with the dark trim. So after you complete your first square, go ahead and make 3 more. So you're going to need 4 of each of the squares that we are making for this mystery crochet along. However, if you want to make a smaller blanket and you don't want to make it as large as the one I'm going to be making, that is perfectly fine. Just make the number that you think you would like, or if you just want this to be even a small baby blanket, maybe even just 1 of each, you're going to have to double up on at least one of the squares. But there are many options to this, and if you want this to be a much larger project for, let's say, a queen size or a king size bed, then go ahead and make more than I'm recommending.
Well, I hope you enjoyed making the first square of Bonnie's mystery crochet along with me. If you did, please comment below. I would love to hear from you. I do read all the comments. And if you're following me on YouTube, please consider subscribing and hit the thumbs up. And if you hit that little notification bell on the YouTube platform, that will ensure that you will get further notifications so that you won't miss any of the squares that will be coming your way very soon. God bless. Bye-bye.